They say blood is thicker than water, that family comes first, that your parents will always have your back. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not always true. My name is Emma, and for 10 years, I poured my heart and soul into building my parents' jewelry shop from the ground up. 10 years of late nights, early mornings, and sacrificing my own dreams. 10 years of turning a struggling little store into a profitable business that supported our entire family. And in one afternoon, my parents signed it all the way to my younger sister, Claire, the same sister who barely showed up for work, the same sister who complained about every task I gave her, the same sister who spent more time taking selfies with the jewelry than actually selling it. You want to know the worst part? I found out by accident. I wasn't even supposed to be there that day. I had taken the afternoon off for a dentist appointment, but they called to reschedule. So I headed back to the shop early, thinking I'd surprise my parents and maybe close up a big sale we'd been working on. When I walked through that back door, I heard voices in the office. My parents, the family lawyer, and Claire. I should have announced myself. I should have walked right in, but something in my gut told me to wait, to listen. And that's when I heard my father's voice, calm and decisive, saying the words that would shatter my world. So it's settled then. We're transferring full ownership of the jewelry shop to Claire. Emma's done a good job managing things, but Claire is family oriented. She'll carry on the legacy properly. She understands what family means. I stood there, frozen, my hand still on the door handle. My heart was pounding so loud I was afraid they'd hear it. My mother's voice came next, softer, but just as final. Emma's always been so independent. She'll be fine on her own. But Claire needs this. She needs something to anchor her. This is what's best for everyone. The lawyer asked a few procedural questions. Papers rustled. Pens clicked. And just like that, 10 years of my life was handed to someone who'd barely worked a full week in her entire existence. I didn't storm in. I didn't scream or cry or demand answers. I simply backed away from that door, walked out of the shop, got in my car, and drove. I drove for hours, my mind racing, my hands shaking on the wheel. How could they do this after everything I'd done? After I'd transformed that failing business into something successful? But as the sun began to set and I finally pulled over at a beach overlook, something shifted inside me. The shock began to harden into something else, something cold and clear. If my parents wanted to choose Claire over me, fine. If they wanted to pretend I was just some employee who could be replaced, fine. But they were about to learn a very important lesson. Everything they thought they knew about that jewelry shop, I was the one who knew it. Every supplier connection, every system, every secret that made it run smoothly. And I was about to take all of that knowledge with me. My revenge wouldn't be loud or dramatic. It would be strategic, calculated, and absolutely devastating. They wanted to give my sister the shop? Perfect. Let's see how long she could keep it running without me. To understand what happened next, you need to understand what I built, because this wasn't just any jewelry shop. This was my masterpiece. When I started working there at 22, fresh out of college with a business degree, the shop was barely surviving. My parents had run it the old-fashioned way for years, waiting for customers to walk in, ordering random inventory, keeping messy books, and hoping for the best. They were artists, not business people. My father was a skilled jeweler who could create beautiful custom pieces. My mother had an eye for design, but neither of them understood profit margins, inventory turnover, or customer relationship management. I did. My first year there, I digitized everything. I created a customer database, tracking purchases, preferences, anniversaries, and birthdays. I set up automatic email reminders so customers would get notifications when it was time to buy gifts for their loved ones. Sales increased by 30% that first year. Then I rebuilt our supplier relationships. My parents had been ordering from the same 3 wholesalers for decades, paying premium prices for average stones. I researched, networked, and found better suppliers, ethical sources with competitive pricing and higher quality gems. I negotiated exclusive deals. I built personal relationships with mine owners and cutting houses. Some of these people became friends. They'd give me first access to exceptional stones because they trusted me, not because of the shop's name. By year 3, our profit margins had doubled. I didn't stop there. I created a social media presence, showcasing our custom work and telling the stories behind each piece. I partnered with local wedding planners and photographers. I hosted jewelry care workshops that brought new customers through the door. I hired a part time goldsmith apprentice to help my father, freeing him up to focus on the complex custom work that commanded premium prices. I redesigned the store layout to improve flow and highlight our best pieces. By year 5, we'd opened a second location. And through all of this, I barely took a salary above what a regular manager would make. I reinvested my bonuses back into the business. I worked 60-hour weeks. I missed vacations, dates, and time with friends because I believed I was building something for my future, for our family's future. My parents praised me constantly. They told relatives I was their secret weapon. They said the business would be mine someday. Claire, meanwhile, drifted through life. She dropped out of college twice. She worked retail jobs that she'd quit within months. She moved back home 4 separate times. And my parents supported her through all of it, telling me that Claire just needs to find herself. 2 years ago, my parents asked if Claire could work at the shop. Just part-time, they said. Help her get some stability. I said yes. Because that's what family does, right? Claire showed up late most days. She spent more time on her phone than with customers. When I asked her to learn the inventory system, she said it was too complicated. When I tried to teach her about different gem cuts and settings, she glazed over after 5 minutes. But she was charming with customers in a superficial way. She could smile and compliment someone's outfit. And my parents saw that as people skills. What they didn't see was me quietly fixing her mistakes, correcting orders she'd entered wrong, smoothing things over with customers she'd offended with her casual attitude, redoing displays she'd set up incorrectly. I thought I was protecting her, protecting the business, protecting our family. I had no idea I was actually just making it easier for them to think she could replace me. After I overheard that conversation in the office, I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel and spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, my mind spinning through everything. Part of me wanted to believe I'd misunderstood. Maybe they were just putting the shop in Claire's name for tax reasons. Maybe this was some kind of estate planning thing that I'd benefit from too. But deep down, I knew the truth. I'd heard it in my father's voice when he said Claire understood what family means, as if I didn't, as if 10 years of sacrifice meant nothing. The next morning, I went to the shop as usual. I walked in with my coffee, smiled at Claire, who was already 20 minutes late, and went about my day like nothing had happened. My parents were nervous. I could see it in the way my mother kept glancing at me, in the way my father found excuses to stay in his workshop instead of coming to the front. They were waiting for the lawyer to finalize the paperwork before telling me cowards. 3 days later, they called a family meeting after closing time. We sat in that same office where I'd overheard everything. Claire looked confused, like she didn't understand why she was being pulled away from her Instagram scrolling. My parents looked uncomfortable but determined. My father cleared his throat. Emma, your mother and I have made a decision about the future of the business. I looked at him with the most neutral expression I could manage. Okay. We've decided to transfer ownership to Claire. He said it quickly, like ripping off a bandage. We think she's ready for the responsibility, and we believe this is what's best for the family's legacy. My mother jumped in, her voice pleading. You understand, don't you, honey? You're so talented and capable. You'll be successful at anything you do. But Claire needs this. She needs structure and purpose. And we need to know the family business stays in the family. I let the silence hang there for a moment. Claire was looking at her nails, barely paying attention. I see, I finally said. And what's my role going forward? My father looked relieved that I wasn't yelling. Well, we'd love for you to stay on as manager. You're so good at what you do. Claire will own the business, but you'd still run the day-to-day operations. Nothing really changes for you. Nothing changes. Except I'd work just as hard for someone else's benefit, someone who hadn't earned it. Can I think about it? I asked calmly. Of course, my mother said quickly. Take all the time you need. I nodded, stood up, and left that office with my head high. I heard Claire behind me asking, Wait, so I own the shop now? Like I'm the boss? That night, I made my plan. not out of anger, or not just anger, out of cold, calculated clarity. If they wanted Claire to have the business, she'd have it. All of it: the building, the inventory, the bank accounts, the business license. But everything that actually made it work, that was mine, and I was taking it with me. See, here's what my parents didn't understand: a business isn't just a location and some inventory, it's relationships, it's systems, it's knowledge, it's reputation. And all of that lived in my head, my contacts, and my personal credibility. They were about to hand Claire an empty shell and watch it crumble. And the best part? I wouldn't have to sabotage anything. I'd just remove myself and let natural consequences do the work. Sometimes the best revenge is simply stepping back and letting people face the reality they created. I gave them 2 weeks' notice. Professional, courteous, by the book. My parents were shocked. They actually thought I'd stay on as a manager while Claire played owner. They begged me to reconsider. "You're being emotional," my father said. "This is just a business decision. Family businesses need to stay in the family." "I am family," I replied quietly, "but apparently not the right kind." My mother tried guilt. "After everything we've done for you, we gave you a job when you graduated. We trusted you with our livelihood." I didn't bother pointing out that I'd given them 10 years of my life and transformed their failing shop into a success. What was the point? Claire, meanwhile, seemed excited. She posted on social media about starting her new journey as a business owner with photos of herself posing in the shop. The comments were full of congratulations from people who had no idea she'd never worked a full day in her life. During those 2 weeks, I was methodical. I trained Claire on the basics: how to open and close, where the supplies were kept, how to process payments, surface level stuff. But the deep knowledge, the systems that actually made everything work, I kept that to myself. I didn't delete anything. That would be sabotage. And I'm not that person. I simply didn't transfer the institutional knowledge that lived in my head. The supplier relationships, those were personal connections built over years. Sure, the contact information was in the files, but the trust, the preferential pricing, the first access to quality stones, that required relationships. And those relationships were with me, not with the business. The customer database I'd built, it was technically company property. But the personal touches, knowing that Mrs. Patterson preferred yellow gold, that the Johnsons always bought emeralds, that Dr. Chen proposed to his wife with one of our custom rings and came back every anniversary, that knowledge was mine. The social media accounts, I'd built those on personal connections with local influencers and wedding planners. Sure, Claire now had the login credentials, but she didn't have the relationships that made the content valuable. The custom design process? My father could create the pieces, but I was the one who consulted with customers, understood their vision, and translated their emotions into design concepts, and managed their expectations throughout the creation process. I'd also quietly been the one handling all the difficult customers, managing the insurance claims, dealing with the accounting irregularities, and putting out fires before they became problems. On my last day, I cleaned out my desk. I took my personal files, my notes, my contacts, everything that was legitimately mine. My parents threw me a small, awkward goodbye lunch. Claire didn't even show up. She was getting her nails done. "I hope you'll still be part of the family," my mother said, tears in her eyes. "I'll always be your daughter," I replied. "But I won't pretend this didn't hurt." I hugged them both, walked out of that shop for the last time as an employee, and got in my car. I didn't cry. I didn't look back. I drove straight to a coffee shop, opened my laptop, and got to work on the next phase. Because here's what they didn't know: I hadn't been idle during those 2 weeks. I'd been laying groundwork. I'd reached out to commercial real estate agents. I'd contacted my personal network of suppliers. I'd quietly let a few key customers know that I was making a change and would be in touch soon. I'd also consulted with a lawyer, not about revenge, but about what I could and couldn't do legally: non-compete clauses, trade secrets, customer ownership. I wanted to be absolutely certain that everything I was about to do was completely legal and ethical. And it was. Because I wasn't stealing anything. I was simply starting fresh with the skills, knowledge, and relationships I'd built through my own work. If my parents wanted to give Claire a business, that was their choice, mas. But they couldn't give her my expertise, my reputation, or my connections. Those were mine, and I was about to use them. 3 months later, I opened my own jewelry boutique in the next town over, far enough to avoid any legal issues, close enough that my reputation carried. I called it Emma's Fine Jewelry. Simple, personal, honest. The space was smaller than my parents' shop, but it was mine. Every design choice, every piece of inventory, every business decision, all mine. I'd saved aggressively over the years, and I had investors too. Remember those suppliers I'd built relationships with? Two of them believed in me enough to provide favorable terms and even small investments. They'd watched me build my parents' business and knew what I was capable of. My opening day was surreal. I'd done minimal advertising, just a simple website and social media announcement, but word had spread through my network. Mrs. Patterson came in first thing, bringing flowers. I heard you opened your own place. I've been waiting. I need an anniversary gift, and I only trust you. Throughout the day, former customers trickled in, people I'd helped over the years, couples whose engagement rings I'd designed, clients who remembered the personal service and attention to detail. They didn't come because of the shop's name. They came because of me. By the end of the first week, I'd made more in custom orders than my parents' shop used to make in a month when I started there 10 years ago. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that things weren't going well at the old shop. Claire had immediately changed things. She'd redecorated to make it more modern, which translated to she got rid of classic display cases and put in trendy but impractical fixtures. She'd posted constantly on social media, but her content was all selfies and motivational quotes rather than showcasing the actual jewelry. She'd called suppliers and tried to order inventory, but without the relationships I'd built, she was getting standard pricing instead of the preferential rates I'd negotiated. Her margins were terrible. Customers came in asking for me, and Claire would say I'd moved on. She didn't understand that those customers weren't loyal to the location. They were loyal to the service. My father was still creating custom pieces, but without me managing client relationships and expectations, there were miscommunications, mistakes, delays. Unhappy customers who'd once praised our work were now leaving negative reviews online. The apprentice goldsmith I'd hired quit within a month. Claire had treated him like an errand boy rather than a craftsman. I heard all this not because I was keeping tabs, I was too busy building my own success, but because people in the jewelry community talk, and they were talking about how Claire was running the shop into the ground. 4 months in, my father called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Emma, his voice was tired. I I think we made a mistake. I waited. The shop is struggling. Claire isn't, she's not ready for this. Customers are asking for you. Suppliers are giving us trouble. We're barely breaking even most weeks. I'm sorry to hear that, I said neutrally. Would you consider coming back? We could work out a partnership. You and Claire could run it together, or no. Silence on the other end. Dad, you made a choice. You chose to give everything to Claire because you thought she needed it more. You believed family legacy meant more than merit or hard work. I respect that it was your decision to make. But I've moved on. I have my own business now, my own customers, my own life. And I'm happier than I've been in years. Emma, please, we're family. That word again, family. We are family, I agreed. But family should respect and value each other. You didn't value what I built. You took it for granted. And now you're experiencing the consequences of that choice. So you're just going to let us fail? Let your sister fail? I'm not letting anything happen. You all made your choices and yours. I'm just no longer protecting you from the results. I hung up, and I didn't call back. 6 months after I opened my boutique, my parents' shop closed its second location. They couldn't afford the rent on 2 spaces with their declining revenue. 8 months in, Claire quit. She posted a long social media message about how the entrepreneurial life wasn't for her and how she was pursuing her passion for wellness instead. Translation: she'd failed and was too proud to admit it. My parents tried to run the shop themselves again, but they were older now, tired. And the market had changed. Competition was fiercer. The economy had shifted. Without someone managing the business side while they handled the craft, they were drowning. Meanwhile, my boutique was thriving. I'd hired 2 employees, talented people who shared my vision and work ethic. We'd become known for exceptional custom work and personalized service. Customers drove from an hour away because they trusted us. I expanded my supplier network internationally. I brought in unique pieces you couldn't find anywhere else in the region. I partnered with local designers and artisans, creating a community rather than just a business. 1 year after opening, my revenue surpassed what the old shop had been making when I left. And I was just getting started. I ran into my mother at the grocery store one afternoon. She looked older than I remembered, worn down. "Emma," her voice cracked, "your shop is doing so well. I'm proud of you." "Thank you. I'm sorry." She said it quietly, looking at her shopping cart instead of at me. "We made a terrible mistake. We thought we were helping Claire, giving her purpose. We didn't realize we were taking away everything you'd built. We didn't understand that you were the heart of that business." I felt that familiar ache in my chest. Because despite everything, she was still my mother. "I appreciate you saying that," I said carefully. "Is there any way—" she started. "Mom, I can't go back. That chapter is closed." "I know. I want you to know that we see it now, what you did for us, what we threw away." We stood there in that grocery store aisle, years of complicated history hanging between us. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "Or Dad, or even Claire, but I can't forget what happened. Trust is like that jewelry you and Dad used to create. Once it's broken, you can melt it down and reshape it. But it's never quite the same as the original piece." She nodded, tears sliding down her cheeks. "I understand." 3 months later, I heard they'd sold the shop. Some corporate jewelry chain bought the location. My parents retired. The family business that was supposed to be Claire's legacy lasted less than 2 years under their management. Claire reached out once, a short text. "I'm sorry I wasn't good enough to fill your shoes." I stared at that message for a long time before responding. It was never about being good enough. It was about earning it. "I hope you find something you're passionate enough about to work for." She never replied. My father took longer to reach out. When he finally did, it was a handwritten letter delivered to my shop. In it, he apologized. Not just for the business decision, but for taking me for granted. For assuming my work was easy because I made it look easy. For choosing comfort over fairness. For not seeing that giving Claire something she hadn't earned wasn't helping her, it was crippling her. He admitted that Claire had struggled ever since, that she was back home again, directionless, that he and my mother had enabled her weakness by trying to protect her from consequences, and that they'd destroyed their relationship with the daughter who actually deserved their support. The letter ended with, "I don't expect forgiveness. I just want you to know that you were right. About all of it. I'm proud of you. I'm sorry I didn't show it when it mattered." I cried when I read that letter, not because it fixed anything, but because it was the acknowledgement I'd needed. 2 years after leaving my parents' shop, I attended a jewelry industry conference. I was there as a business owner now, networking with other independent jewelers, learning about new techniques and trends. During a panel on succession planning and family businesses, I found myself raising my hand. "I have a story," I said, "about what happens when family businesses confuse legacy with entitlement." I told them my story, not with bitterness, but as a case study, about how my parents had built something beautiful, how I transformed it into something successful, and how they'd given it away to someone who hadn't earned it because they confused enabling with love. The room was silent when I finished. An older jeweler in the front row spoke up. "What would you have done differently if you were your parents?" I thought about it. I would have had honest conversations about expectations, about capability, about what it really takes to run a business. I would have made my decisions based on merit, not on which child I thought needed it more. And I would have understood that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is letting them build their own legacy rather than handing them one they didn't earn. After the panel, several people approached me. Some shared their own similar stories. Others asked for advice on how to handle succession in their own businesses. One woman, probably in her 60s, gripped my hand. I was about to do the same thing to my daughter, who's been running my shop for years. I was going to bring in her brother because I felt guilty that he'd never found his way. You just saved me from making a terrible mistake. That moment made everything worth it. Today, my boutique is in its third year. We're profitable, growing, and respected in the community. I recently hired a young designer fresh out of art school, someone with raw talent and hunger to learn. I'm mentoring her the way I wish someone had mentored me. As for my family, we're slowly rebuilding. I have dinner with my parents occasionally. The conversations are still awkward sometimes, but they're honest now. Claire and I are cordial, though not close. She's working as a yoga instructor and seems happier than when she was trying to be something she wasn't. My father visited my shop once, about a year ago. He walked around slowly, examining my displays, watching me work with a customer. When I finished, he hugged me tight. "This is what I should have given you," he whispered. "The freedom to build something that was truly yours." "You did," I told him, "just not the way you intended." So here's what I learned from all of this. The best revenge isn't destruction. It's success built on your own terms. It's proving that your value wasn't dependent on their recognition. It's letting your work speak louder than their doubt. Family is important, but family doesn't mean accepting disrespect or sacrificing your worth. Sometimes loving your family means setting boundaries and letting them face the consequences of their choices. And sometimes the thing you think you lost was actually the push you needed to build something that even better. My parents gave my sister the shop I built, but in doing so, they gave me something far more valuable: the freedom to create my own legacy without compromise, without taking anyone for granted, and without ever forgetting what real work and merit look like. That jewelry shop they gave away? It's gone now. But what I built from the ashes, that's forever. And that's the most brilliant revenge of all.